And here this morning on the morning shift, we have the one and only Paul Chin. Welcome to the morning shift, sir.
Hey, how's it going?
Yeah, out here we on this lockdown right now for the next a good 20 days plus. How's it out there in Toronto?
It's a mess. It's a disaster. It's embarrassing, but at this point, I'm just like, hey, I don't even remember what it was like to live outside anymore. So the less I try to remember it, the less bad I feel about it.
Now, you talked about this with me off air, but the fact that sort of the future of interviews and whatnot is virtually, and so you have this mic set up. What put you in that mind frame to be prepared and ready for that?
The second I knew I was going to be doing video calls for more than just my job, video calls for like stuff that I cared about and liked, I was like, all right, well, let me situate myself properly to do this, right? So, I've had like mics and recording stuff at the house all the time, but that was usually for, when I could have other people over to record them. But now that I'm the one who's on mic all the time, I was like, all right, let me put the mic stand away. Let me get an arm for my desk. Let me situate everything properly. So I don't have to look like a fool who's like pretending to be in a recording studio while I'm just trying to catch up with my mom or whatever.
Well, salute to you. What you're doing, that's real professional. And a lot of artists, I think, should, take some advice or, do that same thing and get a mic, invest in it, because it's a good thing, especially, with this whole COVID scenario and everything having to be virtually. It just makes sense to do. So shout out to you on that. Culture-wise, what did you embrace more growing up?
I grew up Chinese-Jamaican, which is very much, it's very much its own thing. And I think it's one of those things that I've been listening to a lot more podcasts and just kind of I think consuming a lot more, stuff just kind of like on the subject of like identity politics and like kind of academic writings on that stuff too lately. For no particular reason other than I've watched everything on Netflix. I've been taking in more voices kind of speaking on that subject, and it's a thing that I never really thought about or never really identified, but like looking back on it, it seems to be true, which is that only really here in the West or in North America in particular do we kind of have this weird binary system, and sometimes it's a fairly flexible binary in that you can like flip between the two, but you can only ever be one at a time. Whereas like in a lot of other places, like, over in Asia, for example, like if you are mixed, right, like that's its own thing, right? There's a lot of, we think about someone like Naomi Osaka, who's like a Haitian American Japanese tennis player, right? And she plays for Japan. She, I think she has Japanese citizenship, but like just as a person in Japan, she's like not explicitly seen as, oh, you are ethnically Japanese or you are ethnically black. For her, she is like, she's mixed, right? And that's a thing, and that makes sense the more I think about it, because that's a very specific experience to grow up kind of pulling from different sides of your cultural heritage and so on, but like those sorts of things being part of the fabric that make you who you are. But I identify a lot with like certain things about like a Chinese immigrant kid's upbringing, and similarly with like a Jamaican kid's upbringing, but kind of having both of those in my household, and then growing up in Cayman where there's no one else who's like you, because they're all doing their own thing that is kind of like their thing, and then you pull from that a little bit as well. So that's kind of what I would say.
I feel like when it comes down to the music, the Jamaican side of it is definitely probably a big influence for you music wise. Maybe I'm wrong.
It's inescapable, right? Like reggae, dancehall, all that stuff. I grew up in proximity to all of that stuff, right? So it's as I like to think about things getting older and as a person making music, it's like these things I don't think are like my favorite anymore, but they are kind of like my first language. They are the thing that I'm comfortable with.
We got the one and only Paul Chin here holding it down. He's a music producer and DJ, and we're gonna get into one of your records right now. Which song are we gonna kick it off with first?
Let's just jump right in. So let's listen to the Helios Hard Times VIP mix.
Here on the morning shift, y'all. CHUO 89.1 FM.